Today we're going to be starting from the beginning with seeds and planting seeds. So the things that you will need in order to plant your own seeds are, of course, seeds. Whatever you want to plant. They might look like these that I got from a Colorado organization called Bounty Beyond Belief, because I spent some time in Colorado growing food there, so I wanted to support some of the farmers out there, but there's also lots of other great seed companies that I'll put a link down in a resource of lots of different heirloom, organic, and even maybe there's some local ones that I can find too to share. So make sure you have some sort of seeds, pots or some sort of containers that we're going to plant the seeds in. It doesn't just have to be like these little plastic ones that you'll find, but it could also be like an egg carton. I've done it before in like the little egg carton crates in each of the little pockets to be able to plant a seed in there. If you have either smaller ones or bigger ones, that's fine too, because you can always do something called up potting when the plant gets too big for that space. So you can have some time before you get bigger pots if you only have small ones, or again, you can plant a bunch in a big one. So any sort of container. I have a few, and then some soil. This is the only soil I have left. It's from succulents, but there it is. Soil. Yay. So some sort of potting soil is best. This one, again, is for cactus. It's ideal for all indoor and outdoor cactus and succulents. But I have found that seeds can be very, very resilient. So I'm going to try mine in that soil that I have right now. So those are the three main things. The last one that you definitely need is some water. So I have a hose I'm out in my garden, but you might have a watering can or a water bottle. Make sure you have some water, because we'll need that too. So before we start even planting, I would like to point out something that's so important to planting is like the size and type of seeds. So as you can see, this is only 6 different types of seeds that I'm going to plant some of these today, and they range in sizes, colors, shapes, and personalities. As you can see, and the wind is even, you can tell the cabbage, baby choy, which is in the broccoli family, is one of the tiniest. Even though just a light breeze blew it away. So now they're kind of blending in with some of the other seeds and like, hey, I'm gonna roll over to you. So there's that one. There's some basil, slightly bigger, but not by much. Onion, we're getting a little bit larger. Move on down here to beet. These I love. They're like kind of spiky. They're in the same family as spinach and chard. If you've ever seen those like colorful stems with big leafy greens, they all have a similar like spiky texture on the outside. And again, much larger than if you compare it to this cabbage seed. Like, you're massive compared to that. And then keep on moving down the line. I have some cucumbers that are more thin. Obviously very different color, more of a creamy beige color. This is in the squash family. So pumpkins, zucchini, melons also are in this family too. They all kind of look that same curved like leaf shape almost. And then this last one I have is one of the bigger ones, some bean seeds, which hopefully are familiar because beans we eat. Lots of different types of beans, and this is only one kind. There's so many different varieties out there. I highly recommend you Google some, or again, I'll find a link to show you all the beautiful different beans that are out there. There are different colors, patterns, sizes, and shapes. So this is really important because depending on how big or small the seed is, will tell you whether how deep to plant your seed, because the bigger the seed, the deeper it'll have to go in order to make its root system, and also to be able to get like the sunlight from above the soil. And then the opposite for these tiny ones, like if you put them too deep, the sun won't be able to reach them. So I'll show you the difference in that. Okay, are you ready to plant now? Great, me too. I have my containers. I even found one of these like 6-packs from some transplants I got last season. from a gardening store or gardening organization called Spiral Gardens. It's in Berkeley. Highly recommend them. They're a great community gardening organization for building more food security in our community. I have my soil, which I told you is the like succulent stuff, but you needed the water to get it as wet as you can. So you can get some water to those seeds immediately once they're in the soil. Sometimes it's hard if you add water to dry soil after planting the seeds to like move them around. So get that soil nice and wet. And I'm going to start with some of my smaller seeds, my basil seeds. Because this is so deep, I need to first fill it up with that soil. And as you do that, I'm gonna use my hands, but you can also use like a little spoon, a shovel. It's good to do it obviously outside because it can get messy, or do it straight in your garden so that any soil you might drop lands in your garden beds, or if you're gardening in the earth, go back to the earth. And I'm just gonna do a couple pockets right now. So I've only done kind of 2, but I filled it all the way to the top and left like maybe a little space, because since the basil seeds are so tiny, I even just like put it on my finger, like they kind of stick to it. I just pressed my finger onto the seeds, and I'm gonna sprinkle them on top. And like these ones I know are new, so I put maybe 3 to 4 in each, just because sometimes seeds don't make it. Just like with lots of different like animal groups, like fishes for example, they like lay lots of different eggs to make sure some survive. That's kind of how I deal with my seeds. I like to overseed so that I know for sure that something will grow, and I can always thin it out, or share the wealth and give some of the extra plants to other people. So I just sprinkled 3 to 4 seeds in each of those little squares, and now I'm gonna get my soily hand back and just sprinkle some on top, like, so that means it's like barely being dug in there, because again, they're such small seeds. If they go way too deep, they're not gonna get sunlight. They're just gonna maybe get moldy and not get their first sprout through that layer of soil. So I literally just sprinkled it on top, and that's my basil. And something that I forgot to remind you to get is either like a popsicle stick, or some sort of label, depending on where you're going to be keeping these. I sometimes make little watercolor labels I put on my window right next to where I'm planting my seeds that I'll show you in a little bit, just so if you don't recognize what you've planted, that you have a label to tell you, like, oh yeah, the little sprout coming up, that is basil. So I highly recommend you label them, but for right now I'm going to set it aside and go to my next plant. So that's my little basil pack that I'm going to start to propagate. The other one, I'm not going to do all of these. I just want to show you kind of like the different seed sizes, so any of those teeny tiny like little dot size ones, kind of sprinkle on top and then sprinkle some soil over it. That's like, I don't know, like barely a layer because they're so small. The next ones, I'm going to do some beets, and for those, they also are fairly small, and the actual recommended depth that I've learned from different farmers and gardeners I've worked with from Boston to California, is you plant a seed 3 times the depth of its size. So I'll show you with this beet seed what that means. I feel like with the tiny basil seeds, it's really hard to show, and again, it's more from like my experience. Sprinkling and layering a small layer of soil, the teeniest layer of soil, is the best way to go. So again, filling this way up, I'm kind of like patting it in to make sure there's no gaps of soil. I want to make sure those seeds get the nutrients they need. So here's my beet seed. So the way I would measure 3 times the depth is like, if this is the top, I'd go 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. My finger's in the way, so that's why I'm kind of like going 1, 2, 3. So like about there. So what is that? Like maybe ½ an inch or less. So again, so that's how you would know. I I like to use my finger to like make that little hole about that size, drop it in the hole, and cover it up. And I'm going to kind of do, because this is a very large size container for planting new seeds, I'm going to pop in maybe 3 holes. And so I'm kind of putting in 1, 2, 3, and my first one was the 4th, so there's 4 seeds total. And each of those holes I'm going to pop one seed in. And honestly, if you don't get the exact math right, again, seeds are very, very resilient. Plants are strong. We can learn a lot from them right now during this pandemic. And then you want to make sure to cover it up. A big tip that I learned working on farms is don't cover up your seeds until all of them have been planted. So I went boop, boop, boop. I made all my holes, dropped all my seeds, and then I covered up the blanket. Kind of good night. Have a good rest. See you soon when you wake up with the sun. So that's my beets. And then the last one that I'll do, that is like the largest one, are those beans. Beans. So again, this is the top layer of my soil. I'm gonna go 1, 2, 3. So this one goes in pretty deep. This goes in like at least like most of my finger, like maybe half my finger deep, because it's much larger. It needs more of that space to grow both above itself and below itself. So I'm gonna get the same size container for this, put in my moistened soil. Move my spoon. Yeah, so I've been gardening for a while, and I first learned when I was not until like college. So it's good to also get young ones in the garden. I know so many of my friends from the Oakland After School program love to tend our Oakland garden, which is very overgrown right now, since we aren't able to be there to tend to it. I checked it out to visit and see how it was maybe like a month ago now, and it's very, very wild. You can check out the video of how it was looking then. I'll link down there too. Lots of links down there. Enjoy them. So again, I'm gonna do 3 of that 3 seeds. So 1, 2, 3. I hold and made sure my finger went down that 3 times depth. Then I'm gonna pop them in. 2, 3, and then cover it up with all the soil on the side, and then I'll add a little bit more on top because I didn't fill mine all the way completely. And then I'm gonna water those again. Put them in a nice sunny, warm but not scalding hot place. My backyard is kind of like half shady, so I'm gonna keep them out here and see how they do. The one thing to be concerned about if you do it outside is animals might come and search out your seeds. So just right now I don't have much space inside on my windowsill to put them inside, so I'm gonna risk it and see if they'll be protected out here, and I'll check on them every day. Make sure they're getting them watered, and look to see when they sprout. Depending on what kind of seed it is, it can take anywhere from 7 days, like just a week is pretty quick, up to 14 days, which is 2 weeks, all the way to like my carrots and parsley. They took about 3 weeks for its first sprouts, and it really depends also on the warmth, the temperatures, all that can dictate also how quick your seeds will sprout. But next time I'm gonna definitely let you know how mine goes, and hopefully next time we can check them out and see if anything has sprouted, and I'll kind of share the next steps of how to care for your plants and tend your garden. See you then.